Minneapolis City.
Post goals!
The People's Pitch Podcast, brought to you by Summit Brewing Company.
What is up, Buttercups? This is the People's Pitch Podcast, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City Soccer Club. I am your host, John, and as always, alongside me is the voice of Minneapolis City's press booth, the Nathan Morales. Nate, it is game week. Did you pee a little bit with excitement this morning when you woke up?
I've been peeing a little bit every morning, John. We're standing on the precipice of a new season, looking across an unknowable void at whatever the future might hold. It is the best part of the season, in my opinion. It's kind of like the time when we think that we're unbeatable and everything is going to go right, and we would never imagine something like drawing at home against the Madison 56ers.
Yeah, or going to their place with 11 players and beating them.
Exactly.
We have we've been busy prepping for Saturday's season opener, so we are all in on game day analysis this week. And I'm also going to try to limit the ums and the uhs this week. You know, just trying to have good radio for you people. But we'll break down Friday's U of M friendly and hear from a couple players that what worked, what didn't work, and what is missing. We'll gear up for the season opener and have a deep dive into what we can expect when we line up against crosstown rivals, the I-94 battle, VSLT.
Yeah, John. And, today is a special day. It's maybe an especially painful day because it's the first day of the U.S. Open Cup. And I don't know about you, but I've been following it on Twitter all night. I've been checking out some of the games, some of the action, and it's got to be a little bittersweet. Not even sweet, just straight bitter.
Nate, I've been nose deep in 10 pounds of Summit this evening. Yeah. Just, U.S. soccer ruined my favorite day of non-league soccer in America, which is the first round of the U.S. Open Cup proper, because you have such a variety of teams and cities pairing up against other cities. You have the Boca Ratones playing, Miami. You have Ann Arbor playing the Michigan Bucks. It's just such a good mixture of teams.
Yeah. And
we got totally boned, and we were not part of it. So 99 teams got a chance to play today.
What a dumb number.
Yeah, and guess what? We were the 100th. So you could have had 50 even games, but no, you were a bunch of bitches, and you kicked us out. So the only way back in is to win our league, and our league game starts Saturday. So, but anyways, that's all I got to say about that.
Next year will be a better day for you.
It better be. I'd be coaching tonight, probably in Des Moines, so I would have taken a day off of work tomorrow. But it is what it is. So, but anyways, enough about those boners who kicked us out. Let's talk about what happened this week. Nate, our listeners, unless they were living under a rock for the past week, we had our final tune-up for the summer season last Friday against the Gophers men's team. And it was also a tune-up for our fans, our organization, just kind of to get the kinks ironed out as we get rolling for the season. The weather was great. The suds were flowing as we ascended upon the Nelly. What was your take on the evening, Nate?
Yeah, definitely a good night to do a dress rehearsal. I think it was super beautiful. It was great. There was nothing keeping people away from the stadium, which I loved. You're right. We did get some kinks ironed out. There was some new staff, new interns, and new processes that we needed to try out.
New procedures.
Yep. And that's cool. I also found that I'm going to need a little more detail on my lineup card so I don't call a starting 13.
It was more of a starting 10 versus a starting 13.
It was a starting 10 for them and a starting 13 for us.
Well, it is what it is.
Next week, I'm gonna be a little more. God, the handwriting, Alan Merrick's handwriting was so awful. When I started reading the players, I just had to make names up at some point.
We'll just blame it on the Legionnaires' disease.
I'm gonna need next week or next time when we're home. I'm gonna definitely need a little more professionalism from the lineup card from the visiting team, please.
I'd have to say that by and large, I thought everything went well. A couple things that I want to definitely point out that need to be cleaned up a little bit, besides the ability for you to read an old man's handwriting, is basically I need people to stop asking me about the clock and the scoreboard.
Yeah, the clock is a big thing. We're working on the clock. We think we got it fixed, right?
We have an option. The reason why, if you're listening, we do not have a clock
why we're not using
system,
the official Augsburg scoreboard
or the unofficial one right underneath the scoreboard,
right,
is because the university or the college itself is rebranding as Augsburg University. Spoiler alert. Hopefully I can say that. And they will be taking all of that stuff down during the summer. So rather than show us how to use something that we may or may not be able to use, it's just completely off limits. So we will figure something out. We always do. So if you're listening, please stop asking me what we're doing about it. We're working on it. So if you want, ask Chairman Hoodeman. I'm sure he'd love to hear another person ask him about it. So direct your questions to the club at mplscitysc.com, and they definitely will not be answered. But anyways, let's get into the game, Nate. Let's talk a little bit about what we saw. We saw the starting lineup for City lineup as Elder in goal, Ao on the right back, Max and Joey at center back. We had Charlie at left back, AJ in a holding mid role, the number 6 in behind Martin and Wexler, flanked by Chase and Miles, and then Timmy up top.
Yep.
Then the guys that we had in reserves were a couple names that you've heard of before, and a couple names you probably were like, why are they here? Ike Forsgren made his return, and I thought, we'll get into that in a little bit, but I thought Ike played pretty well. We had Abdi Kadi, just so you know, it's pronounced Abdi Kadi. I think you called him 3 different ways in the booth, but Abdi Kadi, one of our development players, was there on hand. Nick Hutton joining us from Stegman's again. We had Peter Runquist, who made a few minutes kind of cameo in the second half in net for Matt Elder. Evan Wright from Stegman's, and then Nate Engel made his reappearance off of his knee surgery that he had at the end of last season.
Yeah.
So any thoughts you have, Nate, on the starting lineup and the guys that we had coming off the bench?
Yeah, I thought that, part of why I was getting excited for this game was hopefully to see some new blood and see some of the new players.
Well, you got a lot of new blood.
Get a sneak peek at some of the new players that are actually going to be on the roster for this year, instead of some Stegman's holdovers or some Stegman's dam pluggers, as if you will. But it was good. It was good to see these guys out there again. It was kind of like a hello to old friends when you see guys like Timmy and Wex and AJ out there. But it was cool to see everyone out there, such as Miles. Hadn't seen Miles really play since
the Open Cup.
Since the Open Cup, yep. Good to see Max making his debut in the City kit, which I was into. And then it was cool to see kind of the depth that the organization does have when we do have to rely on guys like Hutton or Evan Wright.
Well, also the fact that we got to see the first time one of our development players was actually making an appearance with whether it be the first team or a mishmash of it. And I thought, I really didn't in my talking points today, I really didn't mention it, but I thought Abdi light years ahead of where he was when he tried out for our team.
Yeah, I think we'll touch on it kind of at the end when we're kind of talking about how everyone did and kind of giving everyone kind of a final grade. But I totally agree with you that I didn't know what to expect from this kid out of high school. We've been kind of hit and miss in the past when it comes to development players from high school. Mm-hmm. And man, this guy was impressive. It was almost like the next day or a day later when Abu Danladi jumped in.
Made his first start and scored a little goal, but who
Yeah.
cares about those guys?
Yeah.
Our rich cousins from across the river.
But what I did like seeing was, were the guys that we're used to seeing. Like I said, I was hoping on seeing some of the new guys and some of the kids returning from college, but the timing was off. We were missing like 17 signed players, right?
Yes, we were 17 players total from our roster that has been signed. Notably, we were missing Coleman, Goose, Trey, Ba, Steve, Javi, Will Kidd, Whitney, Dan O'Brien, Connor Stevenson, Samo. The list is kind of endless, Nate. So people who are listening who came to the game and were thinking, what, why didn't you just blow the University of Minnesota men's soccer team out of the water? Well, there it is.
Yeah.
And it kind of speaks to the fact of why we have that larger roster and the affiliate clubs, so that we can come in and we can still perform. Mm-hmm. And I thought we did perform. I thought obviously there's things we can work on, which we'll get into, but by and large, the game was entertaining. It was back and forth. There were goals, and everyone had a good time and some great weather at the new location.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick point. There were a couple guys that were late scratches. Will Kidd being one of them. We were informed fairly late that he would not be able to play because his season technically didn't end. He wouldn't get his release until Saturday, right? And so
Right.
it would be not legal, not proper for him to be starting or to be playing with us on Friday night. And then Javi...
Well, I want to interject a little bit there. Not necessarily not legal, but more of a decision from his school that he goes to.
Right.
So it's something kind of a case of, are we going to argue with the university where we're basically borrowing this guy from for a summer? Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. We're just going to readjust as an organization and figure out who to fill that gap with. And also, which the downside is that we were going to be able to see Shea Bottom, who plays for St. Thomas as well, make a full game debut in a trial period with us, and to see what he had 11 aside versus just in training. And that's the unfortunate side of what happened, not only just not having Will, but not being able to have that guy actually show what he can do.
Yeah. Another guy we were missing that we expected was the debut of Javi. He apparently got in a light bike accident, but still it kept him from making the game, so that's too bad. He's okay, and everything should be great moving forward. But that was kind of a bummer. It would have been nice to see what he had to offer when he lined up.
It's almost like, if you follow baseball, it's almost like what's happening with the New York Mets, right? With their star pitcher Harvey, who just didn't turn up to the game. His reasons were he was partying until 4 a.m., where Javi's were a little bit more believable, where he happened to just have his bike be run into by a vehicle on it during the day and couldn't make it. But like you said, he's all good, and we look forward to seeing his debut in the not too distant future.
So we get through all the wrinkles of setting up our starting roster and making sure that the game gets off without a hitch. And the first half kind of followed suit and had some wrinkles and did not get off without a hitch. What do you think about what do you think about the first half, John? What did you see?
I have a lot to say about this, so stop me if I keep going.
Well, okay, go ahead, and then I'll jump in where I can, because I have a few notes myself.
So, first and foremost, number one, guys a little bit out of position. I thought that because we have the ability to be a little bit interchangeable and to kind of throw a couple different looks at teams and different formations, it's best when you have your full puzzle out there, and then you can start reorganizing it into a different looking puzzle than doing it out of kind of haste or pressure or immediate need, just in order to have a competitive side out there. And I thought that's kind of what happened.
You got to have your material down pat before you start to improvise.
Right. The analogy that I was told at once by a very wise coach of mine when I was younger was, would you ever ask a mechanic to fix your plumbing problem at your house? Probably not. But
could he, if he needed to, maybe.
Exactly. The mechanic could definitely figure out his way around a toolbox and figure out how to open the plumbing up and maybe figure out where and diagnose the problem. But are you going to trust the mechanic to make sure that he has figured it out and fixed it? Probably not. On the flip side, are you going to trust a plumber to fix your transmission on your car? Probably not. So that's kind of what we ran into. We able people in positions that maybe they should have not been in, and maybe it's not necessarily not been in, but not their best position they could have played.
Yep.
So
and some of the guys who were playing in kind of the position that they wanted to, were definitely kind of just wandering around the field, and there were a few that come to mind, but I think I'm looking ahead and to the next point. I think because in my opinion, I think the midfield kind of struggled getting the game going. The back line had to push up a little farther than they were used to. We saw guys like Max or like Joey making some pretty advanced runs that were probably not the best thing for them to do. But you gotta move the guys forward somehow, right? So you could tell that they were, at least from the back forward, they were getting a little frustrated with not moving the ball forward.
I mean, I think you're right. I think our back four definitely broke through the invisible dog fence, and they just got like way beyond their boundaries. And in some cases it was okay. In some cases it was kind of, retarding our process moving forward as a unit, because we had so many people in positions that they thought they should be in, and then there's already a guy there, and now they're going to another one, and it just kind of goes to the last point I had on here. We'll move that one up to now, is our shape was just kind of all jumbled up. Mm-hmm. And we heard from Coach Jeremy in the press box, who was in the locker room at halftime, and that was kind of the big thing that Coach Adam had talked about, was like, you gotta, like, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you're just a bunch of dots on a field. Yep. And that's what we were. We were just a bunch of dots on a field. But I think that, to kind of couple with that is our first touch was just off, and I think we were just rushed, and maybe a little bit of first game jitters. We had about 300 people there. I know the guys in Duluth, they didn't have 300 people playing in front of 300 people on a regular basis there, and maybe we just kind of nerves got the best of us, and it made things difficult when they shouldn't have been. In poorly weighted passes, whether it was the short pass that was a little too hard and it resulted in a bad first touch because the guy couldn't control it was coming in too hot, or the long ball wasn't hit hard enough because they're not used to playing at that location. And I can attest for that when you're playing on different surfaces, the same type of pass that you've made hundreds and thousands of times isn't the same pass everywhere. So you have to kind of calculate that early. And in the first half, we were just miscalibrated.
I think that I totally agree. Part of that we were talking about is this move from, to 11 on 11, right? Because you guys in practice have been doing kind of 7-ons or just drills and whatnot, and you weren't on a full field. And all of a sudden these guys hit the field for probably the first time all winter, since the winter. And it's like, holy shit, I got a lot of room out here. Like, what do I don't remember what to do.
Right. You start to
you
start
saw
to
a couple
space.
guys on the wing, like whether it's, the fullbacks or the guys on the wing weren't using the full width of the field, almost like they weren't used to that, or that they forgot they could.
Right. And it was funny because we were sitting next, Coach Jeremy was doing his eye in the sky, Yoda-like, review of what was happening in front of him, and he, how many times did you hear him yell at a player like, get wider? We had so much space we just didn't use. Yeah. And it's kind of a narrow field. It's not as narrow as the barnyard was, but it's a narrow field, and we weren't using it. And I think that we'll talk about the second half, but I think that the team talk at halftime kind of hit home that, all right, we're not in Kansas anymore, guys. We need to figure out how to play, and we need to figure out how to play right now. But I think the last point that I'd like to touch on here personally is that our shots were off the mark. And it's not because in practice we aren't doing things on target with players and with the goalies and whatnot. It was more of, we're shooting everything at the goalie, we're putting things over. And I think that all kind of goes to the first point that we talked about after the guys being out of position, was that guys were rushed. And, some shots that later on in the season might either be tucked home or at least on target, we're going over and going wide because they haven't kind of gotten things in the crosshairs yet.
Yeah, I mean, my first half summary, I would say, is that not that we underestimated the Gophers, but I think we definitely did the what was Classic City from last year, and we played to their level.
It's a Stegman's thing too. It's an organizational thing.
I would say that's always an issue in any sport. Is really like there are these trap games they always say, but just in general, it's easy to play down to your competition's level. And I think the lucky thing is that the U of M almost capitalized right a couple times, and they did not more than they maybe should have. They missed. Wide left on a pretty open net off of a bad pass.
Hit the post.
Yep, there was one that went off the top post. So we got kind of lucky. We could have been down. We could have been down 2-0, 3-0 going into the locker room after the first half.
But equally, Nate, we could have been up 2-0, 3-0 if we would have put our chances away.
Exactly.
So it was very much so a teeter-totter going into halftime. And speaking of halftime, why don't we talk a little bit about the second half? I think the second half. You get your set piece goals, you get your tying goal at the end of the half, and we'll talk in detail about those. But I think 1A on my list is we fixed the shape. We weren't just dots on the field anymore. That message was taken clear by the players that everyone has a role and you have to play it. And I think that even the personnel that Adam was bringing in to come off the bench, they were fixing areas of need that we had, and it worked. We definitely very much so kind of snapped out of whatever haze we were in, and we started to play the soccer that we have been building towards all winter and in the fall.
Yeah, I think it was nice to get guys in the second half that were kind of all on board and had kind of figured out their place in the field, but also everyone was playing the position that they should have. And this even goes to like that. There was a kind of a strange point in the game when AO, our right back was kind of stuck in at the defensive midfielder role, and I thought that was a little odd. It was nice to kind of get back to how everyone's used to playing, where everyone's used to playing, and we got some dividends out of it in the end.
Well, it's funny too because I always joke with defenders when they're in more advanced positions in the field if they get a nosebleed because they're up too high.
Yeah. Like, what do I do up here?
Right, like you're climbing Everest and you hit that one zone where the oxygen hits you and your nose starts to bleed uncontrollably. Well, that's kind of what happened in that particular instance. But as far as the game goes, like we said, we fixed the shape, but we let them press us instead of the opposite, which I know is a thing that we want to do as a team is high pressure, and they really got at us, and I wasn't a huge fan of seeing us be pressured, and I like to do the punching of the mouth first, but it wasn't the case in this situation. We saw their forwards getting more advanced. We saw their defenders not are having the ability to play a long ball over the top because our forward line and our wingers weren't pressuring them, and it was just a little disconcerting because I know we can play better and I know we play a different style.
Yeah. So I think the other part is that we're playing the other part of playing a little more aggressively in the second half is that we of course gave up a couple of stupid fouls, and that led to both goals, including the own goal and that killer free kick.
Right, and it was funny because if you remember, we were sitting there and we played against them in kind of the Open Cup process, so we knew the players we were going to see, and we talked about it on the pod. But the guy who's lining up for the free kick, I immediately said like, this guy can hit these, so we got to watch out. And the disconcerting part about that, or the concerning part about it, was the fact that the referee moved the ball into a more favorable position.
Yeah, I noticed that. I thought that was strange that like they argued for it to get moved up,
and it got moved into an area where it's easier to get up and over a wall. And that's exactly what the guy did. I'm not even gonna pretend to tell you what the guy's name was who hit that free kick.
I got it. It's Mike Plant.
Mike Plant, yeah. We called him something different.
Well, at first we thought his last name was Hunt.
Yeah, right. We thought it was Mike Hunt, but it wasn't.
So, but that was, I mean, that free kick, the third goal in the game, we've kind of glossed over the first two. The first being an own goal from accidentally off of the thigh of Joey. And I think, it was just kind of a cross into the box that he was trying to clear, and it just went right in.
Yeah,
right past Matt.
To hearken on the words of Coach Jeremy, soccer's a weird game, and you never know what to expect. And that was kind of it, where, there's nothing bad to say about Joey trying to clear that out. It just happened to go the wrong direction, and it happens. So
yeah.
it went in the goal, and then we all of a sudden see ourselves down 1-0, and
to the University of Minnesota club team, right? So it's like kind of a wake up call, hopefully.
Right, and we talked about how they're not anything to shake a stick at, right? Like they played good soccer, but we were, instead of, like I mentioned before, being the team that punches in the face, we were the team that got punched in the face. And how we bounced back was where I thought we kind of hit more of a positive thing in going into the season. Because, we went down and we didn't fold. And then we immediately had the chance to convert, what was kind of limited chances. And it was Martin's free kick that happened next. And you've seen it on Twitter and on social media. It was just a beautiful finish.
Thing of beauty.
And it was funny. I like we talked about how I called their free kick. I called Martin's as well because we worked on it in practice on Wednesday, and he went exactly where I thought he was going to go. He went up and over the wall, and the goalie really had no chance and watched it go in. So it was good to see Martin kind of converting on the things that we worked on in practice, and it was a thing of beauty. But then
let's talk about the final goal, because like we said,
yeah.
Mike Plant makes the beautiful free kick kind of off the crossbar, like ricocheted right down in behind the
There
line.
was no more room for that ball to go anywhere but
I know,
in.
it was amazing. So you can't fault the team for that. But then right at the end, right, we're fighting back right at the death of the game. Let's talk about that Hutton goal.
Yeah, it was off of a corner kick, and usually you like to see your bigger bodies getting in on those corner kicks, and the ball kind of, I don't know who took the corner. I want to say it was either Miles or it was I think it was Miles, but whoever it was at the corner kick didn't get the ball past the first level, and it got cleared out, and Hutton was kind of just sitting on top of the box and just chested it and took it right out of the air, and it was a great finish. And you don't necessarily expect a guy like him who's kind of your speedster and your winger who's just going to get in behind defenses to have a clinical finish like that through traffic, and another opportunity where the goalie didn't even move because it was such a well-struck ball.
Yeah, how do you expect that? And we talked to both Martin and Nick about their goals in some interviews here. We definitely want to bring those to you guys. These are our post-game interviews of both the game winner, Hutton, and the boss, Martin Brown Jr. All right, what's up? I am here with Martin Brown Jr. Martin, first of all, it's good to meet you. Thank you for talking to us. This is your first game in front of the home crowd since the U.S. Open Cup. Did you feel the love?
It was nice. It was nice having a crowd out tonight. The weather was pretty nice, so it was fun.
It's a pretty big crowd out there for. I hope this is a harbinger for like what's to come. Like there were some people in the seats.
It was impressive for our first game at home, being a preseason game. It was nice having a lot of crowd out there. We can't wait to start the season. I hope the crowd continues to come because it was fun playing in front of a home crowd for once. It's kind of nice, and being here is a nice facility. So
yeah, it is a nice facility. That's exactly right.
Yep.
First half, man, the center backs were really the ones that were pushing the attack up. They were the guys that were kind of moving the ball forward and almost spurring the attack on. How was Minnesota? How were the Gophers disrupting that attack?
Well, we couldn't find space in the middle, so which allows our center backs to get the ball a lot more. Second half, as you can see, we was able to drop back a little more, create more space, having our defensive mid do more of the moving the ball around, and that creates space for our attacking players to get under the ball, which helps a lot more.
So you end up stepping up and taking the free kick. Right now, you were one of the guys that were on the team from the U.S. Open Cup,
Yep.
kind of moving forward into this season. probably, stepping into a veteran role almost, because there's a lot of guys coming back from college, a lot of new guys to the team. What was that like? Like, was that a decision that you made, like, this is going to be my kick, or was that something that was called from the bench?
Well, I'm usually in charge of most of the set pieces, so yeah, I get the first chance at it. If I see something else, we tend to go a different direction, but I usually make that decision. So
you called it.
I did call that one. I kind of wanted that one. I've been missing a few in practice, so it was nice to get one out of the belt. Yeah,
that was nice. That was nice. As a team, what did you guys learn tonight?
Well, we have to play together. We have to be more confident, I would say. Just time. It's our first game together. We got a lot of new guys. We're working on a lot of different things, so just getting everybody back from college will help, and a few training sections here, but not a bad game. We just got a little more confidence and try to play a little more together.
All right.
Yeah.
So anyone that follows you on social media knows that there's a very positive message to a lot of your posts.
Right.
What is the positive message that you have for Minneapolis City moving forward?
Our goal this year, I would say, just have it be a home team. I'd like to see a lot of people come out and just have it be a good environment. It's always nice when the fans is out and supporting the team. So, I mean, for us, this is the first time we get amateur soccer to be at this level with a few teams around here. So I would like to see it be a fun environment. But definitely win more than lose.
Win more than lose.
Is the key.
Yeah, that is important.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate it.
Great to talk to you.
You too.
I appreciate it.
Thank
Good
you.
to meet you.
You too.
Okay, so I'm here with Nick Hutton. So Nick, a little bit of a snafu. Didn't get the communication to come to the game. You came late. Were able to get into the match, and then you scored the game winners. Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, everyone's kind of scrapping for it. Ball drops in a good spot. Found a little bit of space and swung as hard as I could and caught it clean. Doesn't normally happen that way.
Close your eyes and went in the goal.
Yeah, I woke up, it was in.
Nice. So what were they doing out there that kind of was making us not kind of maybe play what we wanted to play, or what were they doing that disrupted us?
They closed down the ball really well. We were just not giving ourselves the space and playing simple. If we find splits and do some things like that, that's kind of what we talked about at halftime, and cleaned it up a lot in the second half and a couple of mistakes. They got a sweet free kick goal, gave them an own goal, and I think we had a lot of chances. We just get a little cleaner, keep playing, and it'll fix its way out.
So you're a Stegman's guy. This is now 2 friendlies that you've participated with City, and you performed well. Have you done enough to impress the coaches?
Heck, I don't know. It's just fun to lace up the boots and get out with the guys.
All right. So last question for you. You went to the U. You ran track at the U. Did you play soccer at the U?
No, I lost 5 years of soccer. That's why the touch's not there anymore. So I still can run straight forward and backwards, but turning's tough.
So how's it feel to kind of put the dagger into the goal that kind of saved us?
It was good, and it never super pumped about a tie, but it's good not to lose.
All right, cool. All right, thank you very much. Good game today.
Thanks, Biz. Cool. See you guys.
Thanks, man. So I think both those guys kind of reiterated what we talked about, but I like to kind of at least mention a little bit about Nick and the fact that, he missed the email or the correspondence saying, come to the game because, he's not on our roster. And then we had to call him and kind of yanked him off of the bar stool to come to the game. No, not the literal bar stool, the figurative bar stool where he was doing something else, and then he got there late, and then you see him race to the locker room, get geared up, and then get on the field, and then to see him he's an effort guy, and he's put forth multiple good performances like we talked about in the interview, and really performed. And you wonder how long it's going to take or what it's going to take if for other guys to realize they have to step up their game, or someone like Nick is going to take their spot moving forward.
Yeah, there's hungry guys kind of chomping at the bit to get a shot at this first team opportunity, basically. So there's really no room for to rest on your laurels if you think that you maybe are a definite starter, or at least even a for sure bench sub player. Like, you gotta show the coaching staff what's up.
Yeah, I mean, not only is our roster deep, but our reserve pool is equally as deep, and a lot more hunger coming from the reserve pool to be signed and to be in the mix than there used to be. And I think that kind of my final analysis before we talk about each individual players was that, I really liked that we fought back, where last year we'd go down a goal or two and we kind of just shut the shop up for the evening, and we didn't come
Everyone
back.
starts hanging their heads early.
Yeah, and we didn't do that because I think we have a little bit of a different swagger this year, and it could be something fabricated from what we do off the field, or it could be just the mindset of the players we have in now, or the guys that are returning that saw what happened last year and now they're ready to make it to write a new story, I guess you could say.
Yeah, word. I agree with you. I think that like I said at the beginning, it was nice to see some of the players return. There were a few guys that I was really happy to see. I think Nate Engel looked great coming off the bench. He looked healthy. He looked spry. He was getting up and down the field.
He's got a new haircut
on a number of occasions. Yep, his hair's looking great. Hair's looking good. I was happy to see Max. I mean, I'm going to have some defender things to say, I guess. I was happy to see Max. Interesting to see him play for the first time. And I really loved, he was not afraid to kind of be the guy that either pushes up the field and, granted, way out of position, but still to kind of get the team moving. But he also could drop a long ball in, which I really liked. I think he did. That was his first play, I think, was a real nice long ball up to Miles. And then he kept trying to do it, and it wasn't quite as successful from then on. But we at least know he's got that ability, and there's a danger there. So I was happy to see that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that you also saw, you saw Martin perform, finishing his chance on that free kick. You saw Miles playing a different position, which I think a more advanced attacking position is well suited for him.
Yeah.
Shape might be a little bit of a thing for him to work on, but outside of that, you saw him getting in behind defenders and taking guys on and working hard up there. And I thought, outside of the 2 goals, one being an own goal you can't do much about, and one being, an unstoppable free kick, I thought Matt Elder made a few great saves and really showed that he's still the rock back there that we can count on.
So final point on this game before we move on. A 2-2 draw was, of course, not the result that really anybody expected against a University of Minnesota Golden Gophers men's club team. And I want to know, John, knowing that there were probably scouts there from Duluth, of course, from VSLT, Twin Stars, a lot of the teams locally at least, and I know Duluth because probably we're going to be running up against them in a couple weeks. How much of this result was really just warming up, cohesion issues, and how much of it was potentially some sleight of hand to kind of throw guys off the scent before we're ready to really get going this season?
Well, I don't think there was really any sleight of hand. I think let's kind of bring it into a baseball analogy.
We're not magicians.
We're not magicians. No, we are wizards, but we're not magicians. But in the preseason in baseball and spring training, are we crowning a World Series champion in spring training in Arizona or Florida? No, we're not. They're using those games to get ready for when the rubber meets the road, and I think that's 100% what we were doing. We've already talked at length about how we were shorthanded, and it is what it is. I think if we would have lost, that would have been a little bit of more of a problem. But
yeah.
I talked about how we punched back, and that's the one thing I think we take away from this is we can work on the first touch, the passing, the shape, but what we can't work on is the mindset and the attitude that we have, that when we take the field, we expect greatness, and we're going to strive for that, and we're going to fight for it until the referee blows the final whistle. And we've talked about it in team talks ad nauseum, and I'm pretty sure those guys are tired of hearing my voice, but I want them to hear my voice in instances like that you are better than this, and I expect better than this as the sporting director. And I think that, for me, that was 1A on my list that they accomplished.
Bam.
I dropped some serious knowledge on you right there, or what?
Yeah.
But no, it's 100% true. I think that we had the opportunity to fold, and we didn't. And outcome aside, we did our job, and we'll work towards that in the future.
I heard that. So let's take that enthusiasm and look forward to Saturday, our season opener and NPSL debut against VSLT FC. Viejos son los trapos. John, any high-level thoughts on our first opponent?
I mean, outside of their name being a mouthful, unless you'd call them by their analogy.
The old rags.
the old rags. You know, we talked a little bit about them when we kind of previewed many moons ago the new league we're playing in and who to expect to see. And I thought that back then we talked about what they were, and we'll just kind of do a little bit of a high level kind of reset for the listener who may or may not have been paying attention back then. But VSLT is kind of based off of a similar model to us. They started out in the MASL amateur level and kind of had a quick rise to the Division 1 status. They started out in 4 and they just kind of continued to win promotion, and this past year winning Division 2 and coming up to Division 1, and then creating this NPSL team that they have now. And kind of the first kind of talking point that I'd like to hit home on is that their roster by and large is kind of a player pool that's going to be across both MASL and NPSL. So whereas with us with Stegmans, we have a Stegmans team, and there is a few, you know, there are a few guys that cross over, and there is a little bit of sharing going on, but by and large it's two different teams. And I think that with their organization, they draw mostly out of, you know, the Hispanic community and you know, a few other outlying players, but they have this core that they're going to be using. And I think that in the beginning of the season, definitely something that, you know, is a strength where they're going to be playing a lot together early on, but I think is maybe a little bit of a detriment when you get into a long season that involves travel. So you're going to see them potentially coming out of the gates really hot, and it kind of stinks that we're getting them right off the bat and we're not getting Lacrosse Aries that's going to be the doormat of the league in everyone's opinion.
I think 55-1 said pretty much the same thing this week when they kind of took a deeper look into VSLT, that like they've got the tools to succeed early, but they're playing double duty this year.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes. For us though, our full roster is going to be in the house, and that's exciting to hear. Who are we going to add that was not at the Gopher game on last Friday?
Well, before I get into that, I'd like to kind of caveat just a little bit that we won't actually have our full roster, but we'll have more of a fuller roster.
Oh, okay.
So you're going to see the likes of Goose is back in town. Steve literally came from his final exam to go right to training tonight so that he'd be eligible for the match. You're going to see potentially a fully healthy Whitney. Connor's back in. I saw him this week at training. Hoof is back in. Nick Hines came in from Nebraska yesterday. And then obviously we know about Javi and kind of what happened with him. He'll be in the mix. He was at training this week. So I'm interested in, you know, I didn't make it out tonight to practice, but I'm interested in, in hearing the report from not only the guys, but from Coach Adam and kind of who was there, who performed, and who's ready to go. But this kind of speaks to what it means to having a deep roster. And I mentioned VSLT with their kind of crossover, but where we're able to not only have a deep roster like we talked about in the Gopher game, but also when we start hitting league play where we're now getting guys back in, and we're not getting, you know, peripheral guys back in. We're getting guys that can compete for starting spots, and in my opinion, should be competing for starting spots.
Yeah, that's good. So let's talk about VSLT players of note. We don't know a lot about this team. They've kind of kept quiet. And if you've got something to say about these guys, let me know. I think the most the guy that we should mention first, of course, is their player. It seems like he's a player manager, is Juan Fizz, and he's going to be running. He's going to be coming out of the defense. I don't know too much about him. I know he's kind of been around. He's been around the league, and of course, in your MASL, as an MASL opponent, you might know him a little more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know actually quite a bit about Juan. First off, great guy. He is the kind of the heartbeat of the organization. Started the team and is the kind of player manager of the team. And he actually, if you go back into NPSL archives, he was a NPSL All-Star in his own right in, I believe, 06 and 07 or 07 and 08. I don't know the particular years, but he played for the Twin Stars, and he was a member of the national runner-up Twin Star team that they had quite a few years ago.
So he's been around.
So he's been around. He understands what it takes to play in this league, and he understands what it takes to kind of have the organization that is needed to compete at this level. So you'll see him on and off the field, but you'll also see the next player who is kind of a coveted player and one that, if VSLT in the future doesn't participate in maybe the US Open Cup, and we do, with our college guys being gone, maybe we borrow him for that, like we did with players from Duluth and from the Twin Stars and from Minnesota United Reserves, and Rodrigo Galvin, who played with the Minnesota United Reserves last year, but really is kind of their linchpin and their talisman, who they kind of, everything goes through him in the middle of the field. And he's a great player. And it kind of shocks me. I don't know Rodrigo that well, but it shocks me that a player of his caliber isn't playing at a higher level.
Yeah, I mean, he's an 09 graduate of Humboldt High School, so he's been also around kind of the Minneapolis St. Paul soccer scene. Like you said, played for United Reserves, dangerous midfielder, kind of almost not quite the one that got away, but it would be, like you said, it would be nice to have him. Speaking of guys that got away, or at least on some level, they also signed Angel Riera, who is a Stegman's guy.
Yep, absolutely. Actually, it is Angel.
Angel.
He goes by Angel. Yep. So Angel's a great guy. He was definitely a solid member of our treble-winning squad with Stegman's last year, but wanted to play at a higher level, and there wasn't room in the inn for him within the city organization, and yep. He skipped across a couple miles down 94 and signed with VSLT, but
gotta get those minutes.
Right, very technical midfielder. He works hard, and he's definitely one of those guys that if he stuck around with Stegman's, could have contributed, and much like Nick Hutton, could have been on the periphery.
And same with Peter Young, right? Like he's another former Stegman. He also played for Minnesota United Reserves. He might be a guy that we even kind of gave him a call and said you should take a look at VSLT.
Right. Exactly. And I know Peter very well. He and I are good friends, and Peter is one of those guys that, this is an opportunity for him to get more minutes somewhere and to continue to play at a higher level. As far as playing is concerned, kind of plays that defensive line midfield role, or probably slotted in at this level at the outside back role, but dangerous free kick taker. This guy can put a ball in a paper bag from anywhere. And
I remember you saying that in the winter trials. Yeah,
I mean, he's one of those guys that he may play outside defender for 80 minutes and then have the opportunity in a flash on a free kick and he buries his one chance. The other guy that we have a little bit of insight into is Shane Marshall from St. Thomas. Yeah. So Shane actually trained with us last summer with City.
Really?
Yep, and he is a teammate of Will Kidd and trialist Shea Bottom at St. Thomas. So Shane's actually also an outside defender, and much like Peter, they probably flank each other. And Shane's a solid player, and again another guy that you hate to say no to, but you have other players that you either prefer or other players that fit better into your system.
Yeah, and then finally, I want to touch on a newer signing. They signed a guy named Alejandro de Moya, who is of note to me because he is ex-Twin Stars, of course, just like Juan, but also he's ex-Minnesota Thunder, so he's another kind of wily veteran that they've added.
Yeah, they've done a great job of recruiting as well as building a fan base, and we'll talk a little bit more about game day experience and what to expect when we go to their place. But hats off to Juan and the entire organization for really having their own voice and their own thing that they've created, and not trying to follow suit of everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, in general, would you agree that guys like Juan or Alejandro and some of these guys they're being brought into the team because, or I guess they've been staying involved in soccer around their community locally, and that's kind of how they have these connections and this cohesion within the Hispanic community?
Yeah, I'd completely agree with you. I think that it's very important to have. I mean, look at our roster. It's very important to have those players and the people that are just solid people from a soccer perspective, who have been there before, maybe at a different level or with a different team, but they bring a little bit something to the table that your younger players don't have, or they bring something to the table that the younger players can learn from. And I think it's important for any team.
Can't all be college kids and community college dropouts, Duluth. All right, so they've been VSLT has been getting some analysis. First of all, today in the NPSL Northerner blog, this guy had them number 1 in his power ranking, and it was hard to believe, but I think VSLT have been keeping very purposefully quiet to kind of obfuscate exactly what's going on over there in the start of their season. They're ranked number 1 in NPSL Northerner because they've already played one more game than us. They've played 2 preseason friendlies of note, one being against Aurora Borealis, our old I guess I don't want to say friends, but our old PLA division mates or whatever.
Our allies, I guess.
Allies. Borealis was, of course, never a good team, and if it wasn't for, I remember making fun of them weekly when we would do the Around the League update. Them and Grand Rapids Olay were both garbage, but Borealis did end up coming up to play late season spoiler for the Croatians. So that wasn't. It's they're no slouch, and the PLA is not any less of a talent pool than I would say the NPSL is, especially locally. But then they also played this team, the Cardinal, an MASL side. They drew them 0-0. So they got a couple of results, and like we've said against the Gophers, you can't really judge them on that because it's just tune-ups. But at its heart, and we kind of touched on this earlier, aren't they basically an MASL team?
Well, I'd like to kind of rewind a little bit back to your first point with the power rankings. Technically, they were just listed first, and then if you go all the way down to the bottom of the article, Minneapolis City is actually the dark horse, or I mean, sorry, the slot
that's his. He's gonna slot it in. Look at that! Yeah. I didn't read that far because I got bored. I was like, oh well, Sioux Falls. That's enough for this article.
Right? Yeah. Right. Exactly. So technically, they were not ranked first in the power rankings. However, they are no slouch, and the Cardinals in MASL are actually proverbial. Kind of 1A, 1B with Stegman's in who's going to compete for the top amateur team in Minnesota, and actually finished 1 point behind Stegman's last year in the title. So they're no slouch either. So, I think that, like you said, our performance against the Gophers and their performance against these two teams are not necessarily a good indicator of what to see come Saturday, but it does show something,
Yeah, I think also, going into Saturday, I always want to say, don't underestimate my fellow Hispanic people. I think these guys are going to come out of the gate scrappy. They seem like they have some pretty good team unity. They were practicing outside in the snow. I think these guys are ready to rock this year. Just a matter of how far can they take it. What differences can we expect to see for us from Friday?
So I think the first thing is you're going to see a more motivated team kind of on the rebound from what internally was maybe perceived as a bad result, because we were expecting more out of the game on Friday. But I think, the guys, even just when you and I were trying to catch Nick and Martin for interviews, the guys coming out of the locker room saying like, all right, on Monday it's time to get back at it and kind of right the ship. So definitely much more motivated team. I think missing pieces are back into the fold. We talked about, a player like Goose or like Steve, where they have specific roles within the system that we've built that we didn't have in our preseason tune-up, but have been playing soccer on a regular basis almost every day, to be honest, that we just are blessed to have coming back in the beginning of the season, where last year we kind of didn't have that. When the season started, it was just all new, and we're like, what are we going to do? And next thing you know, we're playing against Bavarians in Milwaukee. It's like, holy shit, this thing is happening. And, we travel with a busload of people down there, and we don't know what we're really doing. And, we had some teachable moments like we talked about last year. But this year it's different. So those missing pieces are back into the fold, and still yet after Saturday, we won't even have our full team back. They're all going to be coming back the following week. So moving into Duluth, we're going to have even more guys back. So that ability for us to quickly align with each other, from the guys that were the core that have been here since December all the way through to the guys coming back in, we have to quickly all get on the same page.
So let's talk game day details. If you don't know, the game will take place at James Griffin Stadium at 3 p.m. And John, I think that's the Central High School Stadium, right?
Yep, the Jimmy.
Yep, so they will not be allowing any alcohol in, much like we didn't allow alcohol in the Barnyard. Correct. This is a free game. They will not be charging admission all season, actually. So that's pretty cool of them. Gets people on board and people get to see their product, and that's great. So free game for all citizens out there. Swing over, check it out. There might be some tacos from Pancho Villa. That's not a stereotype. Their sponsor is Pancho Villa. So if they're true to form, hopefully they'll have some delicious cuisine available for purchase, and I would love to support that. If you are a Minneapolis City fan, you should know that the citizens will be gathering. The citizens, our supporter group, will be gathering at O'Gara's at 1 p.m. And they're going to be marching to the stadium at 2. And, of course, it all gets rowdy at 3. John, I am very excited. This, of all games, VSLT, I'm really excited for, because I think we've got some mutual respect. I think this is going to be a fun and a friendly cross-94 rivalry.
Yeah, I think so. Like I've said multiple times, I could care less about the opponent across the field. We have to just do our job. And if we do our job, 3 points are ours and the season started.
Bam. That's very, very utilitarian of you. I like it. Well, that is all for tonight's show, friends. I want to give, of course, some love to our sponsor, Summit. It is beautiful outside, and there's a full line of wonderful tasting beers for you to enjoy, whether it's by a bonfire or on the lake. So head to your local liquor store and buy some. It really does make listening to this podcast all that much better. Hey guys, don't forget Saturday's game is free, but next week's game, our home opener, will not be. But if you want to get in for free, a membership is right for you. $60 will get you the season pass. You got to get in now when it's a good deal, because you get 8 home games, a fancy new membership scarf, a member's vote, and of course, the love of soccer held closely to your heart. If you want to just buy game by game, single game tickets will be $10 ahead of time, $8 ahead of time and $10 at the door. Just head over to mplscitysc.com and hook yourself up with whatever you need today. Hey, we are out on the town. We had guys at the YMCA again last night helping kids connect to this fine, beautiful sport, but we need the help and support of all of you people. So if you're looking to align yourself with a fine group that loves to give back, you are in luck, because Minneapolis City is a 501c3 that does good on and off the pitch by providing those less fortunate with a safe space to enjoy the beautiful game. And of course, every donation is fully tax deductible, so consider giving to the club that gives back. If you want to get a hold of John or I, we've made it super easy. You just hit us up on Twitter. We are at The People's Pitch. or you can always email us at mcscpodcast@gmail.com. All questions, comments, concerns are welcome. And, of course, hit the club up with all of your complaints at MPL City SC. That's all for this week. I'm going to see you all Saturday afternoon in St. Paul for the I-94 Derby with VSLT. We are going to talk to you next week and bring on another special guest that I'm sure you will love as we get prepared for our home opener against Duluth FC. We're going to leave you with the usual hotness from the house band Go Get 'Em Tiger. This is Highway 9. I am Nate. That is John. And you, as always, are the beautiful fans. Enjoy your week and get on out to that match on Saturday. Peace.
You got goofed.
Examine launched into disarray.